Okay, so for this section of this lesson, what I want to try to do is give you a real good picture of exactly kind of what goes through your mind when you're thinking about different types of birth control options, pregnancy prevention, um, and kind of just go through a bunch of questions that I think are really important that you ask yourself before you take this step. Remembering that abstinence is our number one way of preventing these things, and so. Um, when you think about this kind of stuff, and again, I'm going to share some info with you. These are in the slides that you're going to see. I want you to really process a little bit about what your goals are here. So, do you want the product to prevent pregnancy, to prevent disease, to prevent both pregnancy and disease? Do you want to use a hormonal product, a barrier product? Do you want the product to be the responsibility of the male, or do you want it to be the responsibility of the female? I remember when we talk about this stuff, we talk about communication, how important it is that you have these conversations. Okay. Uh, so, a couple things I want you to kind of think about for just a second. We're going to start in this zone down here, hormonal and barrier. Okay. So, what I want you guys to think about is this. And the majority of birth control devices, pregnancy prevention devices, are the responsibility or fall on the female, because hormonal birth control things have to be something that changes within the female to make sure that there is no egg present. Remember, as we've talked, in order to have a pregnancy, you have to have an egg and you have to have a sperm. If you don't have both of those things, you're not going to have a pregnancy. So you could have a sperm and no egg, and you wouldn't have pregnancy even if you were sexually active. So it's important to understand those things. So, what does a hormonal birth control product do? I'm going to give it to you as simple as I can. Um, Ladies, when you're pregnant, for real, when you're a little later on in your life, when you get pregnant, your hormone levels rise. Okay. When you are pregnant and your hormone levels arise, you don't release any eggs. Okay. So the idea behind a hormonal method is it's going to trick your body into thinking you're pregnant, which by raising your hormones. Okay. And while it's thinking that way, you're not going to release an egg. Okay. So during that time of using that product, what happens is the more of the hormone you introduce through your doctor's prescription, as the hormone levels rise, you won't release eggs. Okay. In order to make that happen, you need to understand that you have to go through some processing. You have to listen to your doctor. You have to follow the directions, and you got to hit it perfectly. Okay. And when we talk about why these things don't work, the majority of the things fall back on human error. Okay. Now, gentlemen, what you need to understand is that the barrier method condom is really the only one that falls back on the male. That said, you need to be involved in the conversation. You need to be included in these discussions that you and your partner are having to make sure that you're making decisions that are best for both of you, not one, but both of you. And these are big kid conversations. And if you're not ready to have these conversations, then it's really important that you're patient and you kind of sit back on sexual activity and wait till later on in life when you really feel like you are ready for this kind of stuff. So let me go back here. So hormonal, increase hormones, no eggs. Okay, barrier, keep the egg and the sperm apart. Pretty straightforward. All right, so let's take a look at this next piece. Okay, so here's some effectiveness stuff. So you can kind of see this stuff. So at the top of this diagram, you'll notice that they are the most effective. So if you see this, this is a 5 pregnancies in every 1,000. Okay, this is 2 pregnancies in every 100. I'm sorry, this is 5 in 10,000. This is 2 in every 1,000. Okay, you can see this is an actual surgery. This is a surgery for the male, surgery for the female. See differences. Okay, now this is probably more in the area that you guys will be part of. This is something called Depo-Provera, which is an injectable shot. You can see the effectiveness rate. That means 94% of the time you won't have a pregnancy. This one says 91% of the time. Okay, now what's interesting is you drop down here, a lot of people believe that this barrier method is really, really effective. Well, look at here. It fails 18% of the time. And so what you guys need to think about is, are you willing to take that risk? And so as you look through these different products, and I want you to spend a little bit of time with this, is how do you understand what would be best for you? Okay. Now understand, ladies, when you increase your hormone levels, it does change a lot of things within your system. So it may change your menstrual cycle a bit, may change your mood cycles a bit, it may change a few other things. Okay, so again, it's about doing your research to make sure that you have the right things in place. Okay, so you can kind of see this. Now, I want to go back to this concept I discussed earlier. A barrier method is going to prevent STIs or STDs better. No question about it. Less effective preventing pregnancies, but it will prevent STIs if it's used correctly. Hormonal is way better at pregnancy, but it's not. It doesn't help STIs at all. There is no barrier here. Okay, so if you look at the bottom of the screen here, one of the things I think you'll find interesting is putting two methods together would improve effectiveness. So something like the birth control pill and the condom at the same time allows for a much better result, and it protects against two different things. So these are things that, again, conversation with your parent, conversation with your medical provider really, really helps the situation. So your work for this unit, pretty straightforward. You're going to get this delivered in Google Classroom, and you're just going to fill it out. How does it work? Is it barrier, hormonal, or other? What do you do? Where can you get this? And then some sort of interesting facts. I'm going to give you, obviously, the slides here and a couple of links as well to help you with your research. Don't spend a lot of time in this. Don't write long, drawn out things. Make this pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Okay. Um, when you're done with this, we're going to talk about Minnesota just a little bit. So there's a great website here. I'm just going to show it to you real quick. And it talks about all the different states and how they look at different things. So, like, you might want to click Minnesota, but let's say you plan on living in a different state. Maybe you want to check out that state. So, it gives you a whole bunch of different things about that, which is great. The reason you're looking at this is I'm going to ask you to complete this Google form. And the Google form simply asks you to answer a few questions about the rules that you found out in this diagram. So again, that information is listed here, and you can kind of work through that one as well. Okay. The last thing I want to highlight to you is how do you find out this information and where can you get it from? And so thinking this way, there are two phone numbers. These are local people. Julia works for Human Services, and Dr. Jen Langman Anderson works out at Mayo Clinic. They're unbelievably talented resources, and their word is free of charge. Obviously, when you go to Mayo Clinic, you're going to get connected a little bit with the insurance process, but Doc Jen on a telephone call would be as honest and open as possible. Julia works for Human Services, and her services are free of charge. They use what's called a sliding scale, which means it's based on your income. You guys probably don't make much money, so Julia's services are pretty much no charge. So if this is something you're curious about or interested, and you're willing to go out and do this, it's really important you understand. Last piece, in both of these situations, they're pretty confidential, which means you can get this information without asking your parents. Here's the issue. Sooner or later, they're going to find out. And so I'm encouraging you to go above and beyond and talk to your parents about it first. Doing that, lots of good things will happen because you're opening up that communication. Okay, and I'm going to go back to the original point of our whole discussion, and that is very straightforward. You want to stay away from disease in pregnancy? Let's abstain. Let's stay away. Okay. For those of you later on in life that are choosing to be sexually active, let's make great decisions. Let's be ready for a family when we start to be sexually active, and let's make sure that we're preventing all diseases possible. Okay. Last thing, have great conversations with your parents about this topic. I know it seems uncomfortable at first, but the more you start talking now, the easier it is later. I can vouch for that with my own kids. First couple times we talked about this stuff, it was not very much fun. But even the second or third time, like within a week, it got so much easier and so much better. So those are some things to think about as you are working through this information. So Again, two things you're doing. The Google form that is in the middle of this lesson. Again, Google form is on slide, excuse me, sorry, on this slide right here. And then this piece right here that you're going to do as well. Both of these links and this assignment will be in Google Classroom, and I'd love for you to get that rolling in the first couple days here. So any questions, make sure you reach out to me. I appreciate your work. And again, I'm really sorry that we're not here together. I would love to be able to have this conversation face to face. I think we could learn it in a better way, but this is where we're at. So let's do it right. Let's do it well. So take care, everybody.